Long before satellites or seismographs, ancient civilizations were already reading the signs through stars, animal behavior, and even sacred myths. But were they just superstitious? Or did they know something we've forgotten? Understanding nature in ancient times, long before satellites scanned the skies or seismographs measured tremors deep underground, ancient civilizations faced the unpredictable forces of nature with nothing but their senses, traditions, and beliefs. The survival of early societies often depended on their ability to read the signs of the natural world. Though they lacked modern scientific instruments, ancient people were keen observers of their environment, drawing conclusions from recurring patterns, unusual animal behavior, celestial changes, and shifts in weather or water. To the ancients, nature was not separate from their lives. It was alive, powerful, and deeply spiritual. Many cultures believed that gods or supernatural forces controlled the elements, and natural disasters were often seen as signs of divine anger or cosmic imbalance. In the absence of scientific explanations, people turned to myths, rituals, and to try to predict or appease them. These cultural tools became their early warning systems. Despite the lack of modern technology, ancient communities across the globe developed surprisingly sophisticated methods to anticipate natural disasters. From sudden migrations of animals before earthquakes, to the shape of clouds predicting storms, to the alignment of stars and strange behavior of the ocean foretelling floods or tsunamis, these people read the world around them with care and intuition. This essay explores how ancient people predicted 5 of the most devastating natural disasters: earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, tsunamis, and storms. Each section will examine the observations, spiritual beliefs, and cultural practices that guided their understanding, from the Greeks and Egyptians to the Mayans, Chinese, and Pacific Islanders. Through this journey, we'll see that while they may not have had data or devices, ancient peoples were not passive victims of nature. They were active interpreters, constantly seeking signs, meaning, and survival in a powerful and unpredictable world. Earthquake prediction in ancient civilizations. Throughout history, earthquakes have shaken human civilization to its core, toppling buildings, reshaping landscapes, and inspiring both terror and wonder. Ancient peoples, with no understanding of tectonic plates or seismic waves, nevertheless tried to explain and even predict these devastating events through close observation of the natural world, mythology, and early philosophical reasoning. From Asia to the Americas, each culture brought unique methods and interpretations to the mystery of earthquakes. Seismic events. Zhang Heng, a 2nd century Chinese polymath, even invented the world's first known seismoscope, an urn-like bronze vessel with dragon heads that would drop a ball into the mouth of a toad when an earthquake occurred, indicating the direction of the tremor. While it didn't predict earthquakes, it reflected China's early desire to understand and react to seismic forces. Greece. Thales and early seismic theories. In ancient Greece, the scientific spirit of inquiry extended to natural disasters. Philosophers like Thales of Miletus, one of the 7 sages of Greece, 6th century BCE, proposed that earthquakes were caused by movements in water beneath the earth. He theorized that the earth floated on a vast invisible ocean, And when this water moved, it caused the land to tremble. Although Thales' theory was incorrect, it represented a significant shift, an attempt to explain natural disasters through rational observation, rather than purely divine punishment. Later Greek thinkers continued to explore naturalistic explanations. Aristotle believed that earthquakes were caused by underground winds trapped in caves, creating pressure that eventually burst out. The Greeks also recorded the timing and patterns of earthquakes. Some philosophers believed earthquakes were more likely to occur during specific weather patterns or seasons, hinting at an early attempt to correlate environmental factors with seismic activity. However, mythology still held influence. Poseidon, god of the sea, was also known as the Earth Shaker, and many believed he caused quakes with his mighty trident. Japan, Namazu and sensitivity to tremors. In Japan, a country frequently struck by earthquakes, people developed both spiritual and observational approaches to seismic events. One of the most enduring myths involves Namazu, a giant catfish that lived beneath the earth. It was believed that Namazu, when restless or angry, thrashed its tail and caused the ground to shake. The god Kashima was said to hold Namazu down with a stone, but if he lost control, disaster would follow. While rooted in mythology, the Japanese were also highly attuned to physical signs. Historical accounts suggest that people paid close attention to minor tremors or foreshocks, which often preceded major quakes. They noted how animals behaved strangely, how groundwater sometimes changed, and how certain cloud formations or weather anomalies seemed linked to seismic activity. The Japanese tradition of careful record-keeping allowed them to develop an early understanding of earthquake patterns, even without understanding the underlying mechanics. Inca and Mesoamerican beliefs. In the Americas, civilizations like the Inca, Aztecs, and Maya experienced earthquakes as terrifying expressions of divine displeasure or cosmic imbalance. The Inca believed that the god Illapa, associated with thunder and lightning, could cause earthquakes when angered. Earthquakes were also seen as a punishment from Pachamama, the Earth Mother, who reacted to human misdeeds by shaking the ground. While their interpretations were deeply spiritual, these cultures also noticed patterns. Some Mayan city-states were built with an awareness of seismic zones, favoring areas with fewer quakes. Oral traditions often carried warnings tied to weather patterns, stars, or natural anomalies that preceded large tremors. Though not predictive in the modern sense, these stories served as early warning systems passed down through generations. Earthquake clouds and sky changes. Across multiple ancient cultures, people observed strange phenomena in the sky before earthquakes. Reports of unusual cloud shapes, colored skies, or halos around the sun or moon were interpreted as omens. These earthquake clouds, described as long, narrow, and unusually straight or glowing, were thought to signal imminent danger. While science has largely dismissed most of these claims, some modern researchers continue to study the possible relationship between seismic activity and atmospheric anomalies. Additionally, people noted changes in the color of the sky or sudden heat waves. These were believed to reflect the Earth's internal tension being expressed outwardly. Though based more on intuition than data, such observations demonstrate humanity's enduring effort to understand the world's warning signs. Conclusion: Even without scientific tools, ancient civilizations developed remarkable systems to interpret and predict earthquakes. From animal behavior in China and philosophical inquiry in Greece to mythological interpretations in Japan and the Andes, humanity's early response to seismic threats was a blend of observation, belief, and storytelling. These efforts reflect not only fear of destruction, but a deep respect for the Earth's power and a universal desire to stay one step ahead of disaster. Volcanic eruption warnings, ancient clues from the fire beneath. Volcanic eruptions are among the most dramatic and deadly natural disasters in human history. With little to no warning, they can devastate entire regions, hurling ash into the sky, pouring molten lava down mountainsides, and altering climates. Yet long before modern volcanology, ancient peoples living near volcanoes paid close attention to the world around them, learning to recognize subtle signs, interpreting myths, and building traditions that help them survive or make sense of these violent events. Roman accounts, Pliny the Elder, and the eruption of Vesuvius. One of the most famous ancient eruptions occurred in 79 CE, when Mount Vesuvius erupted and buried the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum in ash and pumice. The eruption was catastrophic, but it also left us with one of the earliest eyewitness accounts of a volcanic disaster, thanks to Pliny the Younger, who described what he observed in a letter to the historian Tacitus. Pliny's uncle, Pliny the Elder, a Roman naturalist and naval commander, rushed toward the eruption to observe it and assist survivors. He recorded signs before the eruption, minor tremors days in advance, changes in well water, and a growing column of smoke. Though he died during the event, his observations contributed to early understandings of volcanic behavior. Modern volcanologists use the term Plinian eruption to describe large, explosive events like Vesuvius. These Roman records showed that tremors, gas emissions, and the unusual appearance of the volcano, such as ash plumes or ground swelling, were important precursors to eruptions, even if the ancients didn't fully understand the geological causes. Hawaiian oral traditions and Pele, goddess of volcanoes. In the Hawaiian Islands, where volcanic activity is a part of everyday life, oral traditions provided both spiritual explanations and practical guidance. Central to these traditions is the fiery deity Pele, the goddess of volcanoes, who was believed to reside in the Halemaumau crater at the summit of Kilauea. Pele was said to move across the islands, creating eruptions when angered or challenged. Her appearances were sometimes linked to a mysterious woman dressed in white or red, asking locals for food or water. Refusing her could bring bad luck, especially an eruption. Beyond mythology, Hawaiian oral history contains detailed knowledge of lava flows, eruption intervals, and local signs such as ground rumbling, sulfur smells, and heat rising from fissures. These stories were passed down for generations and often incorporated into chants and dances, serving both as Indonesia and Mount Merapi, signs from nature. Indonesia, home to some of the world's most active volcanoes, including Mount Merapi, has long relied on traditional knowledge to anticipate eruptions. For centuries, local Javanese communities have observed natural signs such as unusual animal migration, birds, snakes, and monkeys fleeing the slopes, thickening smoke and ash plumes, changes in the taste and flow of spring water, cracking sounds or low rumbling from the mountain. Elders and spiritual leaders, known as keepers of the mountain or juru kunchi, monitor these signs and conduct rituals to appease spirits. Even today, their warnings are taken seriously and often align with scientific data. This blend of cultural tradition and environmental awareness has helped reduce casualties during major eruptions. Native Americans' stories of fire mountains. Among various Native American tribes, especially in the Pacific Northwest and Southwest of the United States, volcanoes were known as fire mountains. Stories told of angry spirits or giant beings who lived inside mountains and could erupt in flames when disturbed. The Klamath people, who lived near Mount Mazama, now Crater Lake in Oregon, told of a great battle between two powerful beings, one living in the mountain, the other in the sky. The mountain spirit was defeated, causing the peak to collapse in fire and ash. Scientists later confirmed that Mount Mazama underwent a massive eruption and collapse roughly 7,700 years ago, suggesting these oral stories preserved accurate memories of real events. These myths often included visual or environmental clues: odd animal behavior, glowing skies, falling ash, or changes in river flow. Though told as legend, these elements served as warning signs to future generations. Conclusion: ancient peoples who lived near volcanoes did not merely accept eruptions as fate. Through myth, observation, and oral tradition, they built warning systems that helped them understand and sometimes escape nature's wrath. From Roman scholars and Hawaiian goddesses to Indonesian elders and Native American storytellers, the legacy of early volcanic knowledge continues to inform and inspire our understanding today. Flood predictions in ancient civilizations, reading the waters, ancient awareness of the rising tide. Floods, though destructive, were also life-giving in ancient times. Civilizations that emerged along major rivers learned to rely on seasonal inundations for agriculture, but they also feared the chaos that unexpected flooding could bring. Without modern meteorological tools, ancient societies turned to the stars, river cycles, and myth to anticipate and understand floods. Across regions from the Nile to the Indus, flood prediction was vital for survival and prosperity. Ancient Egypt, the Nilometer and the star Sirius. In ancient Egypt, the Nile River was both a blessing and a threat. Its annual flooding, known as the inundation, replenished farmlands with fertile silt, making agriculture possible in an otherwise arid land. However, floods that were too high or too low could lead to famine or destruction. To track the river's behavior, the Egyptians developed a tool called the Nilometer, a stone structure placed along the river with marked columns to measure water levels. Priests would observe how high the waters rose and use this to predict the success of the growing season and adjust tax rates accordingly. The Egyptians also looked to the stars for guidance. They discovered a correlation between the annual heliacal rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, and the onset of the Nile flood. When Sirius appeared just before sunrise in midsummer, it signaled the imminent inundation. This astronomical event became the foundation for their calendar, aligning their civil life with nature's rhythms. Mesopotamia, the Euphrates and Tigris. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, flooding was more erratic and less predictable than in Egypt. While the rivers provided vital irrigation for agriculture, they could also swell violently due to rains in upstream mountains. The Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians developed canal systems and dikes to manage water flow, and they kept detailed records of river behavior over generations to track seasonal trends. These early records formed a kind of proto-hydrology, helping priests and officials forecast high water periods and prepare accordingly. Seasonal changes in weather patterns, animal behaviors, and wind directions were also noted as clues. Still, because of the uncertainty of flooding, Mesopotamian myths often portrayed floods as divine punishment or cosmic resets. Indus Valley Civilization. Monsoon awareness. The Indus Valley Civilization, circa 2600 to 1900 BCE, located in present-day Pakistan and northwest India, flourished along rivers like the Indus and its tributaries. While written records are scarce, archaeological evidence suggests an awareness of seasonal flooding, likely driven by the monsoon cycle. Cities such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were constructed with advanced drainage systems, elevated platforms, and flood-resistant architecture. The placement and design of these cities indicate an understanding of river dynamics and rain patterns. People in the region likely observed cloud formations, wind shifts, and animal migrations to anticipate seasonal rains and the risk of floods. Biblical and mythic flood accounts. Flood myths were widespread across the ancient world and often served as moral or cosmological lessons, but they may also contain memories of actual catastrophic flooding. The Epic of Gilgamesh from Mesopotamia tells of Utnapishtim, a man warned by a god to build a boat to survive a great flood. This narrative closely parallels the biblical story of Noah, where divine judgment leads to a global deluge, with salvation granted to the righteous. Though mythic, these stories may reflect historical events, such as massive river floods, tsunamis, or post-glacial sea level rise. They served not only to explain the unexplainable, but to preserve cultural memory of water-related disasters and the wisdom needed to survive them. Conclusion. Flood prediction in ancient times combined empirical observation with myth, astronomy, and architecture. From the precise measurements of the Nilometer to the moral warnings embedded in ancient texts, early societies sought to coexist with nature's cycles. Their systems may have lacked scientific rigor by today's standards, but they demonstrated a deep, intuitive connection with the rhythms of earth and sky. Tsunamis and sea-based disasters, waves of destruction, ancient insights into oceanic fury. Tsunamis, massive, fast-moving waves triggered by underwater earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or landslides are among the most terrifying natural disasters. In the ancient world, people who lived along coastlines often had no scientific understanding of what caused these sudden surges from the sea. Yet, they observed patterns, listened to oral traditions, and built warning systems rooted in myth and memory. From the Aegean to the Pacific, ancient cultures developed ways to recognize, survive, and remember sea-based disasters. Minoan civilization and the Santorini eruption. One of the most dramatic ancient tsunami events is linked to the Santorini eruption, circa 1600 before the Common Era, a volcanic cataclysm in the Aegean Sea that devastated the island of Thera, modern Santorini. The explosion caused massive tsunamis that struck the shores of Crete, home to the powerful Minoan civilization. Archaeological evidence at sites like Akrotiri and Malia suggests coastal cities were destroyed or abandoned after the disaster. While the Minoans left no written accounts, the sheer scale of the devastation influenced later myths. Many historians believe this event inspired parts of the Atlantis legend and contributed to stories of gods punishing humanity through floods and sea wrath. The eruption and its resulting tsunamis disrupted trade and weakened Minoan dominance in the Mediterranean, illustrating how nature could reshape history. Japanese coastal traditions and tsunami stones. In Japan, a land frequently struck by tsunamis, ancient communities developed traditions and warnings that persist to this day. One of the most powerful examples is the use of tsunami stones, large stone markers carved with messages like, "Do not build below this point. Remember the calamity of the great waves." These stones, some centuries old, are found scattered across the Japanese coast, often placed far inland and uphill. They served as community memory systems, reminding future generations of past disasters. Villagers also paid close attention to natural signs, sudden retreats of the sea, unusual animal behavior, or ground shaking near the coast, all considered indicators of an incoming tsunami. Such cultural memory has proven life-saving. In the 2011 Tohoku tsunami, a few villages that had heeded the old stones warnings suffered significantly less loss of life, showing the enduring value of these ancient systems. Japanese coastal traditions and tsunami stones. In Japan, a land frequently struck by tsunamis, ancient communities developed traditions and warnings that persist to this day. One of the most powerful examples is the use of tsunami stones, large stone markers carved with messages like, "Do not build below this point. Remember the calamity of the great waves." These stones, some centuries old, are found scattered across the Japanese coast, often placed far inland and uphill. They served as community memory systems, reminding future generations of past disasters. Villagers also paid close attention to natural signs, sudden retreats of the sea, unusual animal behavior, or ground shaking near the coast, all considered indicators of an incoming tsunami. Such cultural memory has proven life-saving. In the 2011 Tohoku tsunami, a few villages that had heeded the old stones warnings suffered significantly less loss of life, showing the enduring value of these ancient systems. Polynesian navigation and wave reading. Polynesian navigators, known as wayfinders, were masterful readers of the ocean. Sailing across vast distances of the Pacific without maps or compasses, they relied on an intricate knowledge of wave patterns, cloud formations, bird flight paths, and star navigation. This wave-reading skill extended to disaster awareness. Sudden shifts in swell direction, disruptions in ocean rhythm, or abnormal quietness could signal distant seismic events. While not predictive in a modern sense, these seafaring cultures were deeply attuned to subtle oceanic cues. Their intuitive understanding of the sea likely helped them evade or survive some tsunami events. Myth and memory as warning systems. Across cultures, myths and oral stories about great waves and sunken lands preserved memories of tsunamis. In Indonesia, stories of sea gods punishing coastal arrogance mirror real historical events. In Thailand and the Andaman Islands, elders who remembered ancient tales of the sea pulling away before disaster warned their communities during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, saving countless lives. In this way, myth served as an early warning system, embedding real survival knowledge in stories passed from generation to generation. Ancient people may not have understood tectonics, but they understood the power of remembering and the importance of listening to the signs of earth and sea. Storms, winds, and hurricanes interpreting the skies. Ancient encounters with violent weather. Storms, whether violent tempests, howling winds, or devastating hurricanes, were a constant source of fear and awe for ancient civilizations. Without radar or weather forecasts, people turned to mythology, nature's signals, and observation of the sky to understand and predict these fierce forces. In ancient Greece, storm winds were personified as the anemoi, four powerful wind gods: Boreas, north wind; Notus, south wind; Eurus, east wind; and Zephyrus, west wind. Sailors, farmers, and travelers closely watched the direction and behavior of the wind to determine approaching weather. Temples and shrines were even built to honor these deities. Most famously, the Tower of the Winds in Athens, a structure combining art, science, and early meteorology. In Mesoamerica, the Maya associated destructive storms with the deity Huracan, a one-legged god whose name gave rise to the modern word hurricane. According to Mayan belief, Huracan brought great floods and winds during the world's creation and destruction cycles. Priests used celestial alignments, cloud formations, and animal behavior to interpret the god's intentions and anticipate major storms, especially during seasonal transitions. Native American tribes also paid close attention to the sky. The Plains tribes could read cloud shapes, bird flight patterns, and shifts in wind to forecast changes in weather. They understood that certain cloud types and formations, such as towering thunderheads, meant danger was coming. Elders passed down this knowledge orally to help protect their communities. Among the Norse, sea storms were feared as weapons of gods like Thor, the thunder god, or the sea giant Aegir. Vikings respected the sea's moods and watched the sky for signs of squalls or whirlwinds before setting sail. Across all cultures, the skies were both a warning and a guide, revealing nature's fury and demanding respect. Animal behavior as early warning, nature's instincts before disaster. Long before modern instruments, ancient people noticed that animals often acted strangely before natural disasters. Birds flying erratically, dogs howling without reason, snakes emerging from the ground. Such behavior puzzled observers, but gradually became associated with impending danger. These observations became part of oral traditions, warning systems, and even religious beliefs in many ancient cultures. In China, historical records from as early as 373 BCE noted rats and snakes fleeing a city days before a devastating earthquake struck. Later, Chinese scholars systematically observed animal reactions to tremors, restless livestock, unusual fish behavior, and even dogs barking at invisible threats. These signs were often taken more seriously than minor tremors themselves. In India, villagers have long paid attention to animal behavior, especially during the monsoon season. Elephants moving to higher ground, buffalo becoming agitated, or frogs croaking loudly were seen as warnings of flooding. In some rural areas, these signs continue to influence decisions about planting and migration. In ancient Greece, philosophers like Aelian wrote about animals sensing earthquakes before they occurred. He observed that weasels, centipedes, and birds would flee suddenly before tremors. While the Greeks lacked a full understanding of seismic activity, they respected animal instincts as messengers of the divine or natural order. Modern science has begun to confirm some of these ancient insights. Before earthquakes, changes in underground pressure may release gases or cause vibrations detectable by animals. Similarly, low-frequency sounds before tsunamis or storm fronts may disturb wildlife. Although not foolproof, the connection between animal behavior and natural disasters remains a fascinating bridge between ancient observation and modern science. Astronomical and atmospheric signs, reading the heavens for disaster. To ancient civilizations, the sky was not just a backdrop, it was a message board of the gods. Celestial and atmospheric events such as eclipses, comets, red moons, and halos were often seen as harbingers of disaster. Without modern astronomy, people turned to the heavens for answers, interpreting unusual occurrences as omens of floods, earthquakes, storms, or societal upheaval. Eclipses, both solar and lunar, were feared across cultures. The sudden darkening of the sun or moon was often seen as a sign of divine displeasure. In China, imperial astronomers were tasked with predicting eclipses accurately, as they were thought to foretell the death of an emperor or great calamity. If an eclipse was missed, it was considered a failure of state duty. Similarly, in Babylonia, priests recorded eclipse cycles and linked them with plagues, wars, or natural disasters. Comets were considered even more ominous. The appearance of a bright comet with a long tail, like Halley's Comet, often preceded earthquakes, famines, or disease outbreaks in ancient records. The Babylonians and Chinese kept detailed astronomical logs, many of which connected comet sightings to disasters on Earth, reflecting a belief in cosmic causality. Atmospheric phenomena were also significant. A red moon, lunar eclipse, or atmospheric refraction, rings around the sun or moon caused by ice crystals, or blood-red skies were interpreted as forewarnings. These signs were incorporated into weather lore and seasonal predictions. In many societies, astrology blended with disaster beliefs. By charting planetary positions and star alignments, astrologers in Babylon, India, and Egypt attempted to predict not just personal fates, but collective events, droughts, storms, and earthquakes. These systems weren't just superstition. They were early efforts to understand and respond to the patterns of the universe. Through skywatching, ancient people forged one of humanity's oldest sciences, rooted in awe, fear, and the urgent need to survive. Rituals, myths, and oral traditions as predictive tools when stories warned of the storm. In the ancient world, the line between religion, science, and nature was blurred. Disasters were rarely seen as random events. Instead, they were thought to be messages or punishments from higher powers. To interpret these signs and protect communities, ancient societies relied heavily on shamans, priests, and oracles who acted as intermediaries between the natural and spiritual realms. Shamans in tribal cultures often entered trances or performed divinations to sense upcoming disasters, believing they could communicate with spirits or nature deities. In ancient Greece, oracles, like the one at Delphi, gave cryptic warnings believed to reflect the will of the gods. Similarly, priests in Mesopotamia, India, and China studied the stars, animal entrails, or sacred texts to forecast floods, droughts, or quakes. Rituals were central to disaster prevention. Many cultures performed elaborate ceremonies to appease nature spirits, seeking protection from storms, floods, or volcanic eruptions. In Mesoamerica, offerings were made to rain and storm gods, while Hindu rituals aimed to balance cosmic forces during eclipses or planetary alignments believed to bring misfortune. Myths played a crucial role in preserving the memory of past disasters. Tales of great floods, fiery mountains, or angry gods were passed down through generations, encoding real events in symbolic language. These stories often contained clues and warnings, a way to educate future generations about the dangers of ignoring nature's signs. Ancient civilizations also tracked cosmic cycles using calendars and epochs. The Mayan calendar, for example, was used not only to mark time, but to predict recurring world-ending catastrophes. In Hindu cosmology, the yugas describe cyclical ages of creation and destruction, suggesting that conclusion echoes of the earth, lessons from ancient disaster prediction. Ancient civilizations, though lacking modern instruments, developed remarkable systems to anticipate natural disasters. By observing animal behavior, astronomical signs, sky patterns, and river cycles, they created intuitive methods to predict earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, tsunamis, and storms. Their use of rituals, myths, and oral traditions preserved memories of past catastrophes and offered warnings for the future. Whether it was the Egyptian Nilometer, Japanese tsunami stones, or the Mayan calendar, these tools reflected both observation and cultural belief. While many of these techniques were symbolic or spiritual, they often contained real-world insights. Animals fleeing before quakes, the timing of floods with star cycles, or traditional knowledge of ocean waves showed a deep connection between humans and nature. Though not scientifically precise, these systems fostered resilience and preparedness in vulnerable communities. Today, modern science offers unparalleled tools to detect and forecast disasters. But traditional knowledge remains highly valuable, especially in regions where technology is limited. When combined, ancient wisdom and modern data provide a more holistic approach to disaster readiness. Above all, these early systems remind us of the importance of respecting nature's power, listening to its subtle warnings, and preserving the cultural memory that hath long helped humanity survive in a dynamic, often dangerous world.